Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We're an anime podcast that every 2 weeks we watch an anime and then we come together and talk about it in a book club format here on this podcast. And we do that so that we can then turn the discussion over to our audience so that you can tell us where we're right about, what we're wrong about, what we missed, your thoughts and impressions, because they're just as important as our own. We like to think of it as a big communal reviewing thing that we do. I was on a roll and I lost it, but we're moving on because the show lives up to its name at all times.
Yep.
We started Jujutsu Kaisen. When we announced it, we said episodes 1 through 12. We are talking about episodes 1 through 13 because we felt that fit the end of the story arc the best and the best stopping spot. It was a little hard to tell from episode descriptions before. But to talk about it, I need the help of my co-hosts. So first off, we have the Gohan to my Goku, Jeremy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I have actually gotten to play some of Subnautica Below Zero because I was waiting until that actually finished and released, and it finally released. And oh my gosh, it's so relaxing. It's so fun. I put it on hardcore mode, so you know if you die, you have to restart. And I died. That's what's relaxing. And I died okay, the first time I got really, really, really far, and I had my base, and I had everything set up. Everything was going great. And I went down, and I started investigating this ship's hull, and I got lost. And I drowned.
No.
And then, yeah, it was so bad. And then I stopped taking it seriously at that point, right? Because you have this sense of confidence, this overconfidence that, oh, I've already been this far ahead. No worries. I'm in the shallows. I'll be fine. And so I suffocated like 4 more times in the kelp gardens. I got killed by one of there's this fish that squirts you with like super cooled brine and it makes you freeze and then you sink. And if you didn't have enough oxygen when you were frozen, you suffocate. So that got me once.
Oh.
So yeah, so it took me a long time before I actually got back to the point where I had taken the game seriously and I made it all the way back down. And yeah, I did really good there. Got like, I think 20 hours in, and then I went in for a foray on land for the first time, and I got eaten by one of the land beasts. And
Oh no.
yeah, so I've enjoyed my experience with Subnautica, but I'm going to pause it for a while. Yeah, so. It's really fun, though. I highly recommend it.
I will never understand you. I know we are on different wavelengths in the games we play. All right. We also have the Boruto to my Naruto, Jason. How are you?
Oh, dude. That's still going, by the way.
Hi.
Can't stop.
I know. If you have not watched Invincible, stop whatever you're watching and watch it. Holy crap. Right. I almost as if someone tried to tell me I should watch it.
Right.
It's weird. Overall, I'd probably get it 8 out of a 10. Can't really bring it to a 9 because there's some things that bug me about it, but wow, does it kind of flip the same tropes over and over again, kind of on its own island, and flips it on its head and carves out its own space in the superhero genre. I was really impressed. And I think it's funny because the majority of the complaints I hear from reviewers is that first episode until the last 5 minutes of the episode. And on retrospect, it's like it is so necessary for them to go, we are same, boring, dull, teen drama. Oh, wait. Because that gives the rest of the story and the mystery just that much cooler of a feel. So, but yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
A lot of people I've also seen say there's a lot of this now of deconstruction of the superhero genre. But Invincible was doing it for a long time in comic book form and only just now got to animated form. This is the granddaddy of deconstruction of comic books.
That's
but
cool.
It is good. And
Well, because it's easy to go, they're both on Amazon, The Boys and Invincible.
Right.
Oh, this is just an animated version of The Boys. It is not. Like it's got some themes that are similar, but like this is definitely carved out its own space. And I can't wait to see season 2.
Yeah, Boys is much more satirical and comedy, where this is much more heavy and almost like a real world. There's consequences. Physics matter.
Ooh, you got my attention.
Yeah. If you break the sound barrier next to the building, a lot of glass shatters, and if people are around glass when they shatter, it's
Interesting.
that kind of stuff. I don't think that actually happens in the show, but that kind of stuff, like, yeah, when you get punched and land in the middle of the city, you go through 10 people, and they're not there no more.
Oh,
God, that when he's trying to save that lady from the building collapsing that he just went through, that was heartbreaking. Because you fully expect him to move the rubble and, like, you know, pull these people out, and that's not what happens.
I've had that thought of, like, man, I wish I'd be a superhero, but in the real world, that would suck. And then to see it on TV, and then the scene right after it, which is also just so harrowing. That final episode, man. Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right. My name is Troy, and I finished Resident Evil 8, and so I'm ready to talk about it. I loved it. It is so nice to see a AAA company like Capcom put love and effort into something, because they don't always do that, you know, when money's involved. I think I like it more than Resident Evil 7. Overall, Resident Evil 7 is scarier, but the most scared I've been was in Resident Evil 8. They do a really good job of, there's like 4 sections of the game, and each section is like its own. You can move the slider in the genre versus action to horror, right? And there's one where it's more classical Resident Evil, solve puzzles, explore a large building. Then there's one that's straight up PT, or the old Resident Evil 7 demo. And then there's Resident Evil 4 area. And then there's like, hey, here's an assault rifle, go nuts. Like, you get to play every part and very different genres. It was so fun. It tied all the story together. But again, gothic horror is just not as scary as, you know, Southern murder cannibal family. It's just scary.
So I'm not quite done with it from the Let's Play that I'm watching, and I think one of my favorite lines from the person playing the Let's Play was, who taught Capcom how to do horror? Like, what is going on here? And it was truly terrifying.
In the scary part, I had to pause like every 5 minutes. Like, there'd be a jump scare and I'd pause and have to be like, I'm okay. It's a video game. It's on TV. It can't get me. It's not real. Oh, all right.
I loved when you texted us. You're like, wait, why is there a place to hide? Why is there a place to hide?
Why is there a man-sized hiding spot? All right. Let's talk about the anime Jujutsu Kaisen. This has been the hit shonen of the past few seasons. We've been eagerly waiting to get to it. We finally have. So we are discussing the first 1 through 13 episodes. So we won't know what happens. So keep that in mind as we discuss stuff. But let's do our non-spoiler review. Jason, what did you think of this first half?
I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's definitely shonen. I mean, there's not a ton new in that particular genre, but what's really great is I don't feel like I'm watching Soul Eater or My Hero Academia. This is definitely its own thing, and I like the premise of, you've got these powered beings in this world, and our main character is not one, and he just kind of falls into this world. His raw physical strength is one that's kind of a little bit of a for me, but
we'll get there in the spoiler sections.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's funny. It's got some unsettling scenes, and it's definitely the characters are really well written. So so far, I'm really enjoying it.
All right, Jeremy, what'd you think?
Pretty much in the same boat. I'm not the biggest shonen fan, so it's It doesn't have a lot of the things that really catch my interest that much, but for what it has, I did really find myself enjoying it. I also really like the characters, especially if they actually do what I think they're doing. I hope they're doing, and trickle out a red herring or two in the OP, which if they did, that's really cool. So I don't know. It's nice. It's cool. It's certainly a breath of fresh air after watching Higurashi.
For me, I am also enjoying myself. My thoughts really mirror the other guys. Very shonen, and matter of fact, it feels like it's a love letter to shonen, in that we're going to steal a lot of ideas in a positive way, and then do it as best we can in our own unique way. And there's some cool themes that this is uniquely tackling that are cool. The animation is gorgeous. The company making this is top notch, and they are putting their budget into it, and it shows. But not all the characters are my favorite shonen characters that I've ever seen. And like I said, there's some themes like, well, feels like straight out of that shonen, this feels straight out of that shonen, but I do think that's intentional. And it also suffers from, hey, we're a shonen, we have to start it in the shonen way. We have to show you where everyone's power lies, where their levels are at, so that when threats start coming in that are stronger, you understand the threat, and that when they train and get stronger, you understand the progress. And setting that baseline takes time. And there's not many shonen anime that start with really exciting episodes. That I remember, like the first episode of Fairy Tail, and Natsu beats like 7 random guys, and it's like, oh, this has nothing to do with anything we're going to be doing later, but we just needed to know he has fire powers and he can beat 7 standard people. So, yeah, we get that kind of stuff. But before we go to our spoiler section, now let's talk about the OP and the ED, and let's be careful with our words because it's won awards as far as I understand.
Has it really?
Yeah, the OP I think won best OP of the year for the Crunchyroll
Really?
Awards. I think so.
Wow.
I mean, it's good, but
All right.
I mean,
Share your
okay.
thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not attached to it. I mean, I thought it was decent. Visuals are good. The song was good. What's really funny though is that if you're watching it on HBO app, if you hit the skip intro button right at the right time, because of how it starts and ends, you'll see the main character kind of wake up a little bit, and then he goes back to sleep, and then the episode starts.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I enjoyed the opening. I actually ended up watching the ED way more than I had not only anticipated but would like to admit. The song is catchy, and the animation of the dancing is really funny, except for Kugasagi? No.
Megami?
No, Megami. Yeah.
The guy who doesn't dance, the guy who just rubs the back of his neck like, oh,
Yeah.
God, the camera's looking at
like,
me.
okay, I'm here, but I want to go now.
But it does a good job of capturing their personalities in the way that they dance, especially with him not dancing.
Right.
Yeah, I really liked the intro. I've already got it on audio. I didn't realize this is what it was from again. So yeah, I absolutely love the sound of the intro. The visuals are really cool in it too. Especially there's that look that the since we're spoiler free, that the tattooed face version of himself gives him on the train or the subway when he's looking at the window and it reflects back. Just it captures so much of what's going on in the background, and I absolutely love the relationship between those two characters, and the OP really draws that out. And then also, like I said before, there's a potential for a possible red herring there, which is really, really cool if that's the case. The outro, God, it's so smooth. I don't know. We talked about it beforehand too. I wonder if it's rotoscoped. It's so clean. It looks so good. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Same thoughts as these guys. I had no need to skip them ever. The intro is beautifully animated, though. Like there's CG in there, but it's so hard to tell. A character's on an escalator going down. The escalator is CG, and you can barely tell that it's different than the hand-drawn character standing on them. It's so pretty, and then that outro is a banger, especially since we're just meeting these characters, and I feel it's a really fun way of like determining here's each different personality and how they, if we put a beat to them, here's how each one reacts to it. And the last one, like, I just burst in with big dad energy, and I feel it. I can't say how many times I've walked into, burst into my kids' room, dancing to music, like, yeah, here we go. Yeah, I know that feeling. So I love both of them. All right, with that, it is time to drop our spoiler warning. So we will be talking again, episodes 1 through 13, everything, every character, every story beat, all these theories that will be wrong. It's all going to be coming at you. So that has been warned. If you wish to continue listening in, you will know what happened in this anime. Now you know. All right. So Jujutsu Kaisen is a shonen. It is modern day, and it basically is about jujutsu sorcerers that train at a school. Very shonen.
Yeah.
And they're called curses, and they're basically the negative emotions of humans basically eventually animate and gain a life of their own, sentience, and become monsters. And so these sorcerers have to battle these curses, and that is the premise of the world that we are watching. We start with our main character tied up in a room facing a man wearing a blindfold, and we'll talk about both these characters in a second. And he's basically told, you're going to be executed. And then the story jumps back to where it actually starts. And we meet our main character, Yuji, who was the young man tied up. He has a grandfather who is sick and old in the hospital, and he calls on him. He clearly lives alone now that his grandfather's in the hospital. This is Yuji Itadori. Your guys' thoughts on our main character?
I like his place in this shonen because he's definitely shonen protagonist through and through, right? He doesn't want to hurt anybody. He wants to save as many people as he can. He wants to do the right thing, whenever that right thing approaches him. And, just kind of an all-around good guy that wants to make the world a better place. What makes him a little different is I think his ideals are very much blossoming, if you will, because this kid's a high schooler, right? So he's figuring out his place in the world. He's figuring out his place in this organization. This whole jujutsu is new to him. So I love, but him by himself is very, shonen anime, but his interaction with the other characters is where this anime really shines. And the way he reacts to not only how, the teachers, but also just his ability to make friends and interact with the people around him. Really well written character.
Jeremy, what'd you think?
Yeah, he was definitely entertaining. That was one of the things I really liked about him. He has a good sense of humor. He's quick, but one of the things that was really interesting was a lot of times in shonen, and one of the reasons why I generally don't like him very much is that the main protagonist has a bit of willpower no jutsu. Like if I decide I'm going to do this and I really want to achieve it, I'm just going to accomplish it by force of will. And yeah, he certainly does that to a degree, but this anime gives really good reasons, either right off the bat, it either infers them or tells you very quickly afterwards. So you understand that it wasn't just willpower, that there is something more going on. And we find out that there's, at least one thing that we find out in great detail. I can't really say in great detail, but at least we're told I guess it's ambiguous enough. We're told that he has a better grasp of his own soul than other people. And that's really cool, especially in the way that we get to see how souls work and everything. That makes him very unique, even outside of the jujitsu training that he's getting. And it perhaps explains some of the other characteristics that he has that are so inhuman. Other people are even saying, "Holy crap, you can punch through a concrete wall with your bare hand and without using any kind of like cursed energy or anything." And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, it's not reinforced; it's just concrete."
That's not normal.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I was like, man, that it's kind of annoying that he could just do that. That he's just a main character with super strength. He's setting world records, but at least the other characters are pointing out this is weird. This is not normal.
Exactly.
And the anime isn't just like, oh, don't pay attention to that. Don't worry about that.
Yep.
So,
Well, I think one thing that also lends to an interesting storytelling here for him is that unlike other where it comes against a brick wall, more will and more emotion, he wins. No, this anime kicks his butt over and over again, and he loses
Yeah,
a
he
couple
does.
different times.
Right.
Like straight up, he loses, and so like I'm actually really appreciating that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have put more thought into this character than probably anything else in this anime so far. Because shonen really does hinge on its protagonist, right? They carry the show in many ways. There's nothing about him I dislike at all. But I also don't like naturally gravitate towards him. Like Deku, I really responded to just because he had that, I grew up watching superheroes my whole life and I want to be a superhero. It's like, hey, that's something people nowadays have actually done. We have superheroes in the movies. We've had comic books for a long time. We grew up watching them and I can understand that feeling. He also doesn't have the imbecile but good-natured like Goku does. He just doesn't really have a character trope really that sets him apart. He's the most chill, like laid back shonen anime character I've ever seen. Ichigo was probably the closest, but he was a grumpy guy. Like Ichigo was always just in a sour mood. But he was always like, I'm just chilling, and then I gotta help my friends, but I'm always super loyal. That was Ichigo's thing. Yuji is just, all right, cool, yeah, sorcery. I'm gonna die. All right, if I can help, I want to help people. Let's do it.
It's almost like he doesn't have anything to prove,
Right.
which is what's really weird because that's the central theme of a lot of driving force in shonen usually.
But on the other side of this coin, I love that this shonen is exploring something I've never seen in a shonen, which is like the value of death, he's looking for. He's basically told you're going to die. How do you want to spend that death? Do you want to spend your death saving people, or do you want to just be done now? And he just loses his grandfather, similar to Goku did. And I just really like it. And there's a scene where he breaks down crying because I'm going to die in a way I didn't want to die. And they kind of set it up. I didn't feel it was fully earned. But again, I was enjoying that we're exploring that idea and that topic. That's a heavy topic for a shonen. And this was a really cool way of exploring it. So I do like Yuji. I just I have a hard time putting him up there with like the best shonen protagonists of the eras. I'm kind of torn on him, I guess, a little bit.
One thing I really enjoy about him, because yeah, you're right. Like I go, okay, is he better than Goku? Well, on a pure level playing field, Goku's almost evil.
But he's entertaining.
Can you beat me up? Okay, let's fight. What I really appreciated about this is it took a couple scenes to kind of not just justify, but like spill a little philosophy onto the screen about life and death and why you wouldn't want to kill anyone. And I feel that's really missing from a lot of shonen, because they go, oh, I don't want to kill anyone. Why? Well, people, and it's moral and it's good. Like they really explore it when he's in the apartment with his friend and his mom. Like really kind of laid it out, and we'll kind of get there and explore it a little bit more when we get there. But I found that fascinating that this character wants to actually justify for good reasons why he doesn't want to take another life.
Right. All right. Moving on. He is in an occult club in high school, which is basically two other people who like to pretend to investigate mysterious supernatural things, and he's just
A
like,
little
yeah,
on the nose for this shonen, by the way.
yeah. I thought these two were going to become main characters because that would be very shonen. Like we're non-powered characters who are just always in the background needing to be saved or cheerlead. Shonen do that a lot too, and I'm like, oh, there they are. There's those characters, and then they don't. And meanwhile, another character, while he's at school, is searching for what's called a cursed object. Basically, cursed objects usually repel away curses, but eventually start attracting them once enough time passes.
So the way they explained it is, if a cursed object is powerful enough, other curses think that it's an actual curse that's there. And so they don't want to either fight or they don't want to get destroyed by this other curse. But then once it loses enough of its barrier, like the wrappings, then the curses go, oh, that's not an active curse. That's a part of a curse that I can consume and become stronger. So then that's when the attraction comes.
All right. So one of these objects has disappeared, and he's searching for it around this high school. And we see Yuji defending his spot in the club because the track coach signed him up for against his will for track, and like the club manager is like, you're not supposed to do that, but Yuji's like, let's have a competition for it. And so they have a track competition. They do shot put, and then Yuji sets the world record for shot put because he throws it like a baseball because he's insanely superhumanly strong. You know, not like Dragon Ball Z levels, but enough that other characters are like, did you just throw a shot put like a baseball and only stop because you bent a soccer goal? That's kind of insane. This other guy who's looking for him is Megumi Fushiguro. We should talk about him because he's a secondary hero. He's the guy that doesn't want to dance in the ending. What do you guys think of him?
Talk about Ichiro. This guy, I don't know. I can kind of take him or leave him at this point. He's not. I haven't really grown attached to him too much. He served more as a story-driven mouthpiece or a disposition or exposition mouthpiece for the main character in the first couple episodes. I'm looking forward to the next arc. Hopefully I'll get more attached to him there. But he was okay. He served his purpose.
I actually like this character a bit more than the main character, I would say, because it seemed like he came from a position of having experienced all this jujutsu stuff in the past. Like there's even a line where he's asked, hey, did you ever lose a partner before? And he says, well, not my age. So he's been doing this a while. He's lost an adult partner doing this. It makes me really wonder what he's been exposed to and where he got his shikigami. I think that's what they were called. And yep. And even just the fact that he seems to like he's basically the Pokemon guy, right? He's Ash in this anime. Right? and so sometimes they get killed. And what does that do to you, right? Like think about that for a moment, that he's had to train these and prepare them for battle and everything, and then they die. That's got to suck.
I've wondered if he can summon them back, because he does have the line like they got destroyed, and I don't know if that is permanent or temporary. We don't really know much about how his powers
you're right.
work.
Yeah,
he did send that flying one away because he didn't want it to get destroyed.
He didn't want it to get destroyed. Right?
Yeah, that was what I was basing it off of. Yeah. And so his sort of like quiet, reserved, always taking everything seriously nature to me comes across as a veteran, right? Like he's experienced some horrible stuff and he knows what's coming around the next bend. And we even kind of get to see that. There's one scene where they enter into a domain that's partially constructed, and we'll talk more about what that is later, but it's basically a place that an enemy can construct that has a lot of their attributes, and it's especially dangerous for anyone else that goes into it. And he recognizes it for what it is and immediately starts to look for ways out and everything. And it sort of gave him the straight man role of like, this is really dangerous. It is not as fun as Yuji is making it out to be. It's not as easy. And forget the crazy girl because she's just grandstanding.
He also, to me, what I really like about him is that he kind of personifies the mentality of the sorcerers. Whereas Yuji's coming in like, we're here to be heroes. Like, we're going to save the day. And he's like, that is not what we do. We serve a purpose, but we don't care about the people that are in the way. Like, we can't save people because it'll mess us up. In fact, as we learn, sometimes we're the ones killing the people if that's what is needed to be done. We ain't heroes. And he even has a clash with Yuji later about this. Like, we're not saving people. Get that to your head. He's like, then what's the point of doing any of this? And I've noticed that some of the other sorcerer characters have also been mentioning like, yeah, we're not saving people. I think he mentioned something to one of the Tamaki, and she's like, saving people? What are you talking about, saving people? And so it's really interesting that this group of heroes, or our hero group, is not that's not. They are basically one side of a war that doesn't really have a stake in protecting humanity as much as we'd like to think they do. So I did like how he personified that, and I like how Yuji is affecting him too. Though he's his literal own, I've taken up the sorcerer mentality, is now being headbutted by Yuji's talk no jutsu.
Well, even the fact that Yuji would have been, well, he was supposed to be killed, right? And what's his name? I'm not going to remember these names. Gojo.
Okay.
Yeah, and how Gojo was like, what do you want me to do? Do you want him to live? And he actually did. So that was right there. Even just meeting him was enough to be like, no, I really don't want him to die. Right. Which, like you're saying, it's a departure from his standard worldview.
Right. So Yuji goes to the hospital and has a discussion with his grandfather, who's like, you shouldn't have come here. You should be in school clubs. He's like, well, I'm in a club that lets me come here. So that actually works really well, Grandpa. And then his grandpa's like, you're a good kid. Try to save people. Something about your mom and dad. Mystery. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about that. We'll save that for later. I'm getting very heavy Bleach Ichigo vibes of, hey, your mom and dad aren't who you think they are. They were involved with all this at some point. Man, Bleach really just came out of the right field though, didn't it? Your dad's one of us. Okay.
Okay. And your mom is
your mom was a Quincy. Wasn't she a Quincy?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yep.
Jeez. Okay. Shonen is silly. It's something I've had to keep in mind because we've watched a lot of more serious anime that like I gotta kind of peel back what my expectations are. Like, this is for fun, mindless battling, and if there's a little bit of heaviness, awesome, but it is not going to be Made in Abyss or Promised Neverland. Like, I just gotta let that go.
Well, my expectation when watching this scene was that, oh, okay, this is going to be a recurring thing that, Yuji is going to have to, he's going to learn some sort of lesson that his grandfather was trying to teach him. He's going to come back, and that's going to soften his grandpa, and then they're going to have this great relationship later on.
Yeah. No.
Grandpa dies. Right here and there. And he rolls over. He's like, Grandpa? And then we see the nurse getting a call at the front desk being told, hey, my grandpa's dead. Jeez.
Like, out of left field, I would not expect the shonen to do this with the main character.
Yeah, that was very surprising. Yeah. And then on top of that, I was actually really surprised when the grandfather's body was burned and he was actually the one down there collecting the ashes from the body. That really surprised me. And I don't know, maybe that's just a cultural thing. Maybe that's standard practice, but it's certainly very different from how I understand it is over here. I've never done it myself, but I understand that it's done, by the medical industry professionals, or morgue, I should say.
No, yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I was like, oh, you make the ashes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. As he's leaving the hospital, Megami comes to him and is like, hey, you have the cursed object vibe all over you. The energy is all over you. And he's like, oh yeah, me and my club took that. But all I have is the box. My club actually has the whatever it is. It's wrapped up in bandages, and they're going to open it tonight. But I got busy. He's like, oh well, your friends are going to die. And so they run back to the high school, and then we see the two high school friends in the club work on the bandages, and they can't get it open when they finally do, and it's a pinkish red pointy clawed finger. And as soon as they get it open, creepy spirits come through. Now, Jason, in pre-show, you mentioned that you didn't really get the horror vibes from this. Well, I never found anything scary. I think the creature design was very creepy, and is where I think that element comes from, compared to like Tokyo Ghoul, where things were sometimes creepy, but I felt like this was up a notch from even there.
I will say the creature design was fantastic. But because after this first episode, there just didn't feel like there was much danger to the characters. Horror is
Powerlessness.
Horror needs to have consequences in order for it to be scary, right? You need to go, oh, this is something that's going to affect the characters I care about. I was hoping that there was going to be more, horror-ness to this first episode, which at first it looked like it was going to be, and it was pretty great. And then we're punching our way out of danger, and I was like, okay, I guess this isn't really horror anymore. So because you can kind of swap those creepy curses with just about any other monster creature from any other shonen anime, right? Sure, they look creepy, but some of the body horror was interesting. I mean, it was no Hiragashi.
Yeah.
But it was. I guess when I saw the horror tag to the anime, I was, I guess, expecting something more. But it's cool to watch.
I think the most horror moment was every time he ate a finger. That just killed me every time.
All right, let's get to it. So Megami runs in. He tells Yuji, "You stay out of there." He runs in. He summons the Shikigami, which in this case are two dogs, in battling the curses, trying to get to these high schoolers. But Yuji does burst in to help save the day and try punching the creature.
Literally through a second-story window.
Yep.
Yeah.
And apparently he was on the ground.
Yep.
He's amazing.
They do some fighting. They get thrown out onto the roof, and they're losing. And Megami is telling him, like, no, it's a curse. It has cursed energy. You don't have any cursed energy. You can't hurt it. And he's like, oh, so all I need is cursed energy, and this thing is trying to eat this thing to get cursed energy. I'll eat the thing, and I'll have cursed energy. So he does. And Megami's like, oh my god, there's a 99% chance he dies. But then there wouldn't be a show.
Right.
So the 1%.
But what's interesting about this isn't like, 99% chance he dies, and then 1% chance he gets superpowers and he becomes amazing. No.
1% chance.
The other 1% is also really bad.
Yeah. Which I'm really surprised that Megami didn't just immediately try to blast him as soon as he ate it. Like, we are not taking the chance. We are not waiting to see what happens. You're going to die now, because either I kill you and it's 99% chance you would have died anyway, or I can't kill you because of that 1%.
So he does eat the finger and immediately kills the curse. And then he grows 2 new eyes and other body parts because he has eaten the finger of one of the most powerful curses, the king of curses, whose name is Sukuna, and has now become possessed by his spirit. And then he immediately demands his body back and takes it back.
And I love how the first thing Sukuna does every time he manifests is rip off the character's shirt. He's like, I will not wear shirts.
That's true.
It's great.
I did like this because this was cool because you've got this super powerful being that is just now manifesting, and then all of a sudden he's like, wait, no, hold on, no, let me back out. Where you go?
He's like, my time has come. Nope. No, you just
going on with my arm.
So, Yuji has the power to take back his body at will, and and no one knows why. But we do need to talk about Sukuna because he is a character in his own right. He may look exactly like Yuji when he manifests, but with extra eyes. And does Yuji always just have closed eye slits now underneath his eyes? Is that what those lines are?
Yep.
Closed eyelids. That's
really
terrible.
cool.
If I saw a guy with just closed eyelids underneath his eyes, I'd be like, I'm never talking to you. No.
Yeah, there's something
We are
wrong with
not
you. I think you're a curse.
All right, what are you guys' thoughts on Sukuna?
I really like Sukuna as a bad guy. I think he's fantastic. He's this latent being that's basic. So it's funny because with one finger, this vessel is not very powerful, but he's now been able to manifest as a being in this vessel when he gets a chance to control the body. But as we'll come to find out, the plan's going to be, we're just going to kind of collect all the fingers, and we'll find out why later. So basically, Yuji's becoming a ticking time bomb of like, how many fingers can we feed this thing until he becomes so powerful? But later on in the series, we get to learn a little bit more about his personality. He's arrogant. He's obviously way superpowered just with one finger. And I like his interactions with Yuji, especially in like their little domain. Super cool character.
Yeah, I also love how petulant he is. And boy, is he petulant. Like, the first thing after he rips the shirt off, first thing he says is like, the women, the children, I'm going to destroy everything. I'm going to just ravage everything. And he's just getting so gleeful and everything. But then as soon as it gets taken away from him, he sulks. And he sulks a lot in this anime. And it is really funny. That's what he's doing in his domain, sitting on his throne the whole time. He's just sitting there sulking, thinking. He even says it during some parts of the show. He says, how can I make his life a living hell? How can I make him miserable? The next chance I get, when he lets me out, how can I just ruin things for him? And that cracks me up so much because you've basically taken the tropiest of tropey, chaotic evil, nonsensical, hyper bad characters, right? Which we always hate as the villain because they have no soul. They're just someone for the protagonist to throw themselves against. You've taken that character and then you've taken away all his power and you've let him develop a personality. And it's really satisfying to see the kind of personality that character has.
And you mash him with your protagonist.
Yeah.
That was a brilliant move.
So while it does smell a little bit like the Nine Tails in Naruto, I do think it's a much better how antagonistic he is to Yuji of like, oh no, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to ruin everything. There's like, lend me your power. No.
Even the other villain is surprised because it's like, this would have been good for you, Sukuna, to do this. You would have gotten a perfect contract, anything you want, but out of spite, just no.
No, not helping you. Ha ha.
I love their little contest of, hey, if you can kill me, then you can do what you want. But if I kill you, you have to agree. And he's like, okay, slice.
Yes.
So not only does he have this great relationship with Yuji, but he has this fascination that he develops for Megumi, which is like, what is that all about? That's a great little thing. And then there's this super OP good guy just waiting in the wings for the big match off. And I'm like, oh, what is that gonna be? So his
Well, we get a
existence
taste of it
is
right here,
super
right?
compelling.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that character shows up. Goju. First, he shows up, takes some pictures for the Instagram. He's like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" He's technically the teacher of the first years, and Megami is like, "That guy ate a finger. That guy ate a finger, and he's still alive. That's crazy. Hey, can you let the bad guy out for like 10 seconds and then come back?" And they have this 10-second battle, and then Yuji puts him away. He's like, "Oh, you can control it. That's so interesting." Knocks him out. I'm gonna take you back, and then we have the whole scene. Hey, you're gonna be executed. So we'll go with deep. That scene does go on, but let's talk about the best dad in anime, Satoru Gojo. What do you guys think about him?
I love this character so much. I love it every time he's on screen and every time he's kind of off screen, just talking to the characters. Um, he's also arrogant, but he's also, he's trying to raise the next generation of jujutsu sorcerers. And his teaching, changes depending on which character he's talking to, which is pretty great. And man, his power is so compelling. I really want to know more about it because we get a little bit of a taste of it later on when he gets into a big fight. And just kind of shows because shonen has to do this, they have to show where the power levels are. This guy is like boss level anime power level. Like,
Yeah,
and they usually don't come out the gate with this type of power level either.
Yeah.
The bad guys basically say, if this guy is on the table, we lose.
Yeah.
All of
Yeah.
us. We
All
can't
of us.
win as long as this guy exists. And
And we can't kill him, so we have to trap him.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's funny. And yeah, I just really like this character.
Yeah, that's one of the things that kind of confuses me a little bit because it does deviate a lot from the formula, the shonen formula, to have someone this powerful so soon. I get a kick out of the fact that even Yuji says, why do you all cover your eyes up? Like this guy wears like a blindfold, another guy wears a pair of glasses. But it cracks me up because his blindfold that he wears puts his hair up into like Super Saiyan Spike mode. So whenever he's not actually prepped for combat and he doesn't have his blindfold on, but he's just casually relaxing or something, his hair is actually down. And that shocked me the first time it happened. I was like, wait, is that the same character? He looked completely different.
Oh, he's
But,
so pretty with his blindfold off.
I know, he's a totally different character, yeah. But his eyes are really interesting. Like his power is clearly enhanced when he can use his eyes and look. So yeah, I'm really curious about him too. But yeah, I was a little bit. He kind of bugs me, and it's not his behavior or anything. It's his spot in the story. Like if they do have a character that's this powerful, how are they not just cleaning the board? And I'm guessing it must have to do with like detection. Because they do encounter some later that are really powerful curses, and they're like, these are unregistered. So how are there any registered ones that are still alive if you have a guy like this on the board? He should just be able to go wipe out every single registered one as soon as it's registered. I don't know. So that confuses me, and I'm interested to see how they explain away the presence of somebody like this.
Yeah. I get that, but he's worth it. He just
Totally.
is. He's the kind of guy who is super happy-go-lucky, taking shots for the Instagram, shows up late because he had to stop at the diner on the way and pick up some food, and also will pass you a note after 3 days of trying to get a hold of you that just says penis and has a penis drawn on it. And he thinks it's hilarious, and I do too. So
Yep.
that's a great character. Yeah, I just he's so good. He's funny in every scene. I do wonder with his power level what that means, because it definitely feels like someone who's going to get taken off the board so that the main characters can have threats. Like this is a safety net to get you where you need to go. But we also clearly see him hey, he got sent away, and now you guys have to go deal with this thing that's way too dangerous without him. Since there's only one of him, that does seem to be the weakness of his plan.
Plus, there's some comments about how the frequency of these really powerful curses appearing has gone up drastically. And I can't remember if it was him that was saying it, but somebody was saying these guys are just going to essentially be a drop in the bucket compared to what we're actually going to face, which is going to be way more powerful. So all the power levels are going to do the shonen thing where they just all scale up, and they'll probably just catch up and surpass him.
I think one thing I like about this character, though, is that, like, sure, he's funny, he's amusing to watch, he's, you know, great with the other characters, but his main goal doesn't seem to be exercising curses. It seems to be he wants to tear down the political system of the Jujutsu organization because they're making decisions that he does not agree with.
Corrupt.
Yeah, and so that
Starting his
side
revolution
story
in
is
the
actually
schools.
fairly fascinating to me.
Mhm.
I'm interested to see how that develops, especially if he does end up getting taken off the board, because, you know, these guys seem to be very interested and kind of playing it super safe. Like,
And
you know, their first decision was let's execute Yuji.
Yeah. And he let the other students die if that's what it takes to wipe them out. So yeah, clearly something messed up there.
The way he just said it, because he said killing two birds with one stone, almost sounded like they would have preferred that those students died anyways, which really confuses me because of what value is it to them that these students die?
I would think if he's training them to be like him, they're wanting, hey, let's not let Goju students be thriving.
That makes sense.
That'd be bad for our future.
That does make sense.
But I'm not 100% sure. There could be more to that too. Especially we don't know. There's something going on with Begami that we don't know about. Yeah. Yeah. So in this room, he basically tells Yuji, "You've been possessed by this most powerful curse of all time, and you have to be executed. But since you have the ability to contain him, and there's 20 fingers that we have to get because he had 4 hands." We want to feed you all 20 fingers, and then when he's able to fully appear, when we kill him, because if we kill you with 1 finger in, there's still 19 fingers that can cause damage. But if we put all 20 fingers into one vessel and then kill him, he'll be gone for good. And I have the power to do this, and you have the power to hold him. So how about you join us until you reach this point, and then we'll kill you. And it's your choice how you want your death to be. And again, that ties into the theme of, you know, what is a good death? What is a proper death? That's Yuji's whole obsession, and I want a proper death. But it really is like how if you have to die, how can you put value in it? And it gives Yuji some time to decide. And like we mentioned, the higher ups are not a fan of this. They want him executed immediately. And he goes and gets his grandfather's ashes and decides, yeah, I'll join the sorcerers. And then he has to. He's taken to interview with the principal, whose name is Yaga or Yagu or Yugu. I have sloppy handwriting.
Yes.
Who makes cursed? He calls them corpses, but they look like dolls, and
they're just dolls.
That he can animate and fight for him. Also,
it's like calling them action figures, I think.
Sukuna makes his first appearance as a random mouth appearing somewhere in Yuji's skin to talk some trash. And actually, one of my big disappointments is this is a fantastic idea. It's kind of similar to Parasite, I guess, but I wanted it more, and it only happened a few times, and I was like, no, please I want to hear this guy ripping on him the whole way. This is a bad idea. This movie sucks. Whatever.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so he fights this principal, and he's like, why do you want to attend here? He's like, well, I have to do the thing. And he's like, no, why do you want to attend here? And so eventually the principal is basically telling him, you're going to die, and you're going to regret it when you do.
Because everyone does.
Everyone does. That's what happens when you follow this path. And Yuji impresses him enough that he's allowed to join the school. But these words do stay with Yuji moving forward. And then he gets to be next door neighbors to Megami, and they're like, okay, let's go get the third first year, because that's how small this school is. There is only 3 freshmen in it. And
look, they're friends already.
And so they do. They go to the airport to pick her up. She's a country girl who's moving to Tokyo to join the academy. And her name is Nobara Kugisaki. And what do you guys think about her?
She's there. She's definitely a character in the anime.
Okay.
For the few scenes we get with her, she's all right. I kind of like the interact. I love that she's got similar like desires as Yuji does when it comes to like places to visit and food. And also they don't work well together when hunting curses on their own. But we don't get a ton of screen time with her, even though she seems to be being propped up as one of the main characters. So I can't really make a decision. I mean, she's okay, just not a ton of time to develop much of a personality besides I'm spunky country girl.
It seemed like a lot of her personality was fake, which does intrigue me a little bit. I find her combat technique to be really boring, and I hope that they do something interesting with it later. Just basically a hammer with nails. She does have like that little voodoo doll that she
I was gonna
smashes a nail
say
into.
it's almost kind of a voodoo-ish too, though. That's
Yeah.
which I hope they expand on.
Yeah,
I was about to say she's Gambit with like a third of a deck of cards.
Yeah, exactly. She has a little belt pouch of nails. It's amazing. But it's just I would like to see them. I would like to see what else they have in mind with her. Her history, just not my thing. Doesn't really intrigue me that much. Not as much as Megumin's did. So she really does play third fiddle. I don't. I can't put her in much better light than what you did, Jason. She's there.
Yeah, she, like Jason pointed out, she doesn't have a ton of screen time. I'm interested in the potential of her. I think that there's more to uncover there, because I do think we're only at like a top layer, which seems very conceited, and very superficial. And I'm guessing, based on what we've seen, especially her interactions that we get right here, is that that's not the case. But yeah, she's. I did like when she got a gun pulled on her, and then when she escaped that, she put that girl in a lock hole, and it's like, I'm gonna kick you. That endeared me to her a little bit. That scene was pretty good. So they meet her. She instantly doesn't like them. Like I said, she comes out very conceited, very superficial. And then Goju's like, hey, let's go do a mission. And in Tokyo, they're like, yay, Tokyo. And then they go to an abandoned building and like, this sucks. And he's like, yeah, I tricked you. He sends only her and Yuji in. He gives Yuji basically a big like knife cleaver thing. He's like, this will help you channel the energy because you don't know how to do that yet. And you have to do that if you want to attack curses. You have to hit them with curse energy. They go in, and she immediately is like, "We're splitting up." He's like, "We should stick together. This is a dangerous mission." She's like, "Nope, splitting up." And so she goes off on her own. Yuji fights a curse and manages to kill it. She runs into a curse that's pretending to be a mannequin, and she hits it. And then she finds a little child that is hiding in the room, who I thought for sure would be the curse, but he's not. Yeah. A real curse, and this is one of the less impressive ones. It was like green and furry or something. It looked like it was from Monsters Inc. to me.
And it was always smiling. The eyes were always smiling with its cunningness.
So one thing that really bugged me about Yuji's fight here is that he's all of a sudden proficient at not only using this blade, but being able to jump around and strike with it.
He's a martial artist.
He's trained with weapons before? I mean, was that established?
I don't know. They kept saying like you're highly proficient in martial arts, but I don't think they ever said why or who trained him or taught him martial arts.
This just seemed out of place to be this proficient in aerial combat and like flip kicks and junk. Like because with the last curse, it was I jumped in and I punched it in the face. This time it's like graceful maneuvering, and I don't know. It was like cool, but what? He can do this?
Yeah, when I saw him outdo the world record of the shot put and run faster than a car, like 3 seconds to get 50 meters or whatever, all sense of limitation and normalcy for this character kind of got thrown out the window for me. So
That's fair.
this didn't catch me at all at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do hope we get some. I probably wouldn't this season. This sounds like a
No.
season 10 kind of explanation
Mhm.
in a shonen, but it would be interesting to find out what his full background is. Because all we know is I was raised by a grandpa.
Yep.
So Curse takes the kid hostage, and it's a character moment because it shows her have to decide: am I gonna get both of us killed by putting on the thing in an attempt to save the kid, or do I go for the kill and save myself, which is easy enough to do? And she does put down her hammer and nail, even though she's like, I just killed us both. But Yuji bursts through the wall, and the monster flees, and she's able to use her voodoo technique or whatever it is to kill it outside after it's left the building.
She did make an interesting comment here, because so far the curses we've been introduced to are just like mindless creatures. She's like, this thing's taking this thing's hostage because it knows it's not as smart or it's not as powerful as I am.
Yep.
And I thought that was interesting that curses have different levels of intelligence, and that made the monsters a little more interesting.
We also did get her flashback, which was just that a girl came to town that was a Jujutsu sorcerer, and the town didn't like her and ran her out. And
She was
a city folk
sorcerer? I thought she was just a city folk girl.
Oh, I thought she was weird because she had sorcery, but I don't remember.
No, I think she was asking questions about a damn war, and then like someone started with a
Yeah.
It's all blurring
oh,
together.
wrong town.
Anyway, they argue, and she's like, "How did you punch through the concrete?" He's like, "Well, it isn't reinforced concrete," and she's like, that doesn't explain a thing." They go, and then Goju takes them to dinner.
How does he not realize that he's this much stronger than regular people to this point in his life? How is he not like donned the Spider-Man outfit or something?
All right.
I don't get it.
I know. All right.
Troy, you're like, let's move on, please.
Well, I mean, there's no answer, and the anime is just, again, at least the anime calls it out. You know, if she was like, "Oh, he came through concrete," that's fine. Then I would actually be a little bothered by it too. But as long as characters are like, "That's really weird, man," and he's like, "Okay, I guess." If you say
Well,
so.
but I understand, but like that's the thing that confuses me is like he's comfortable with it, which means that he knows this is something he's capable of, but he also knows that it's something that other people are not capable of.
Yeah.
So how does he not put together, I have powers other people don't, and then use them since he already has a desire to use his powers for good? That's what confuses me. Super weird.
The anime does this sometimes where it suddenly starts doing like a police report, and it's like, hey, there was a juvenile detention prison hall that a cursed womb, 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 appeared above, and 3 first-year students were sent in to deal with it, and one of them died. Since there's only 3 first years, we know that, hey, these are our main characters.
Somebody's gonna die.
Someone's gonna die, and and then so there are end credit scenes after every episode, but they're always just silly. They're always like, they have no plot. They're just, and this one is right before he took them to dinner, them arguing about where to go for dinner, and like, let's go to sushi. Let's go to conveyor belt sushi. And Yuji's right. That's an experience. It's not better sushi, but it is a funner sushi. So. All right. So in the next up to this point, I was like, okay, this is pretty slow shonen start standard stuff. This episode 4, is where I thought it started getting good. So our 3 main characters, Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara, are all at this detention center. They're getting ready to go in. We meet a character named Iguchi. I messed that up, I'm sure. Anyway, he's not a sorcerer. He just works for them as an assistant. And he's kind of like the lackey who has to drive people around. And Gojo always is mean to him, but not as mean as he seems to think he is. And he's there and he's like, yeah, Gojo got sent away. So you guys are being sent into there, which is pretty unusual, to be honest with you. And they mention with curses, there's levels like 1 through 4, and then and it's 4 to 1. So you get higher as the number goes lower. And then there's special class. And I watched this with my daughter, and I turned to my daughter and I said, we're in the 4th episode, and they just introduced special class curses, which means that in about 10 episodes, we're going to learn that there's grading levels of special classes, and that we've been dealing with the weak special classes this whole time. We haven't even, because you can't say, here's the peak in episode 4. That's never the peak. I was so frustrated with this. Like, no, just start at level 4. It's fine.
Yep.
Anyway, the womb will turn into a special class curse, which is super powerful and needs guys like Gojo to deal with them. First years would never be sent to deal with one of those. So he's like, hey, if it does change, get out of there right away. But you should be able to deal with the womb on your own. And also Yuji sees a mom who's sad for her son who was in the prison. So they go in, and the walls get all weird because it's become a domain, and it's not a full domain, that as we'll come to learn later, but basically the door disappears and they're sealed inside this building. And they find the
good boys know the way out.
Yeah. But they find victims, and they actually find the mother's son. He's dead. And then this is where Yuji and Megumi have a fight about, because Yuji's like, okay, let's take the body with us and we can bring it back to the mom. And Megumi's like, no, we're in danger. We got to fight for our lives. He's like, no, but we need to do the good guy thing. We're here to serve a purpose. He's like, not that purpose. You're insane. And he
said something about he read his file.
Yeah, apparently the things the kid did were pretty bad.
Oh, that's right. He read the prisoner's file. You're right. Mm-hmm. And had killed somebody, right?
Yeah, it was his second time driving without a permit, and this time he killed a little girl.
And he's like, so we were never. He's like, I don't think about the people we're here to save. I never planned on saving anyone. We're here to do a job. And while they're arguing, Noboru drops through the floor. The curse takes her away into his own other part of the building, and then the curse appears. And this was a really good curse design. Yeah. This gave me Del Toro vibes.
It was very much Pan's Labyrinth to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
is that Del Toro? Okay.
Yes, it is. So on the same page, cool, absolutely. Cool. And it kind of like a weird shakiness to him, and they're so frozen in fear they can't move. And finally, Yuji takes his blade and swipes it at him, and Yuji's hand just goes flying. And so he tells Megumi, like, you gotta run, you gotta get Nobara, and you gotta get out of here, and I'll distract it. And then when you guys are far enough away, I'll let Sukuna out. Because if you're here, he'll just kill you.
Yeah.
He won't hesitate. So you got to get away. So I'll stall, you get away, and then I'll let the monster out. And then so we get to see Yuji fight this thing. And really what I mean by it, he gets destroyed by this thing. And beautiful animation of like trying to block an attack, and the fingers on the hand that are left are like burning away and peeling away and then just disappearing. So he loses his fingers on the other hand. And he has this really emotional scene where he's like, I'm going to die here. This is not the death that I wanted. And I guess I never had the power to choose a death. I was always going to be forced to a death. Really emotional scene. I'd like to have seen more build up to it, more time by the character thinking about it. We're only on episode 4 before his big breakdown, but it was still a good scene. And then he hears the dog howl. Oh, he actually manages to do a cursed attack. He managed to put energy in his fist and hit the monster, which has almost no effect. But he's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I did an attack." But then he hears the howl, the dogs howl, because Megami is able to get them out of there. And so he lets he lets Sukuna free, and Sukuna immediately looks at the curse and goes, "Let's team up."
Yeah.
But the curse is too it's dumb and primitive that it just attacks him. And he's like, nope, that's not okay. Tears off his arm, starts cutting him in little pieces, putting him on the wall, torturing him. Does his domain expansion. So domain expansion is basically pulling them into your world, but it's also like a 100% attack critical hit. You can't miss your attack. It's whatever your power is maximized, and you can't avoid it.
I love this scene, by the way, because he's missing fingers on one hand, he's missing a hand altogether, and like he goes to block an attack, and because of that, he puts cursed energy into his hand. It heals his hand. He's like, "Oh man, I healed his hand. Dang
Heal
it!"
his hand.
And then he does it to the other one. He's like, "Oh, I healed the other one. Shoot!"
He's so mad that he's helping. But he does eventually. He just kills the curse. And Nobara is taken away to the hospital. So
Well,
Megami
one
is
of his
waiting.
fingers is in this curse.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
taking that.
that's right. And he eats it. Because and they've pointed this out, he's going to want all the fingers inside there too, because that is his best chance of getting free. That's his goal as well. He knows their goal, but he's like, oh, I'll be able to handle it. So he's into the plan of finding all the fingers.
So what happens if you have two humans that each ate a finger and survived? Do you have two Sukunas? And what
Yes.
happens if they meet each other? Would one have
Have
to
you
eat the
not
other?
seen Harry Potter and how Horcruxes work? Come on.
I haven't. Not the biggest Harry Potter fan here.
All right. So and he's like, all right, Yuji, I guess you're gonna take it back. Yuji? No? Oh, you can't? Interesting.
He's like, "Mwah."
So he goes outside and he goes up to Megami and he tears off his shirt in the rain. Don't need this. Tears out his heart. Don't need that. He's like, now, if Yuji does come back, he dies. Literally just
Holding
like
him hostage.
throws it aside. So Megami's like, okay, I gotta fight him with enough power to make him think he needs his heart, because that will have limited his own power. He has technically hurt his own body. So I need him to want to put his heart back, and then I can help Yuji get back. And that doesn't happen. Sukuna just destroys him, just punching him. I actually was like, is there like a defense spell? Because you were getting punched across the city through skyscrapers. It's some rough damage, and Megami survives. Now his bird catches him a few times, but there's a few times he goes through concrete walls.
Yeah.
Well, he's pretty bloody at the end of this too.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really confused me about this is when he faced that first curse in episode 1, he got bloodied up, and that thing was nothing. It was nothing. So I was really confused by basically the same level of bloodied up from Sukuna.
Good questions.
Real brain twisters.
We get Megami's a flashback about his mother's death, and he decides he's going to use. He calls it his sling and ring power, and Sukuna walks up to him and is like, "Why did you run away inside the building?" And Sukuna's like trying to figure out his power, and there's clearly something more to Megami than we've seen, and Sukuna is onto it, and then Megami's starting to do it, and then Megami says out loud to Yuji, "I saved you," because basically settling their argument, like or their fight. I had wanted to save you. I wanted you to live, so I get it. And that gives Yuji the willpower to come back, and then die
without a heart.
He actually went for longer than I thought. Like he was standing there, I'm like, oh, maybe he got it back. No, okay, he died. He died. He fell down.
Yep.
And so the anime delivers its promise. It killed one of the characters. Yeah. Then we see what I thought three curses and a man, technically a jujutsu sorcerer, walking through the city, and they go to a diner, and these are the main bad guys. We learned their plan is to replace the world of humans with the world of curses. And they're like, humans have all these like different emotions. We're singular emotions. So we are like the truth and they're lies. So we should be around. And this human guy's like, yeah, I'm into that. Don't let the other Jujutsu sorcerers know that I'm in on it, but let's do it. And they mention, so we're also at the same time we're seeing Yuji's body in the morgue, and Goju is like, yeah, they sent him there to die. The higher ups, they wanted to execute him. This was a killing. And they, he talked about like, I want to redeem the system, stuff we've already talked about. And then these curses in the restaurant, not only do they start the guy with a volcano head, which is another not great design. I didn't really like volcano head.
That one felt very DBZ.
Yeah, it makes sense once they explain what these curses were.
Yeah,
because curses are fear of literally anything, and so they usually manifest as supernatural beings. Like I have a fear of werewolves, so it could look like a werewolf. This guy is literally humanity's fear of volcanoes, so he has a head as a volcano. That's why there's one.
I love that they mentioned Hanako, by the way.
What?
Hanako?
In the sewers, that one curse he's talking about, the mountain and river,
toilet
but
bound
then he also
Hanako.
talks about
Yes.
like the folklore ones, and he mentions Hanako.
You're
toilet
right.
ghost.
Yes.
Which, as we know and remember, that's a real folklore. But yeah, so he's a
Apparently he's really
volcano
nice.
head, and he sets. I love that one guy's like, if I go to that table, I'm gonna die, and he just quits and leaves, and then everyone in the restaurant dies because that guy sets him on fire, and that guy had to be like, yes.
Yeah.
I was hoping that like we would get like a news report on like a television in the background or something of this guy under suspicion for arson or something like that.
That would.
Yeah.
But anyway, in their plan, they're like, there's two things we have to do. We have to get Satoru Gojo out of the picture because we can't win if he's there. And we have to get Sukuna / Yuji on our side. And they're like, wait, didn't he die? And that's how that episode ends.
I like this premise because normally in these kinds of animes, it's, oh, these are the targets we need to kill. We can take over the world. No, that is not an option for these guys. And I really like that.
So then the next episode starts. We're in Sukuna's domain. And oh no, I skipped a whole thing. We can't do this yet because poor Megami and Nobara are sitting there and they're sad. Their friend died. And these three other characters walk up. The second year students arrive, and we have to talk about that.
Guys, did you know there is a panda in this anime?
Oh my God.
There
His name
is a motherfucking panda in this anime.
and his name is Panda.
Yep.
I will not hear any bad words spoken about
hard
Panda.
for that one.
From the first second he appears in the OP, I'm like, there's a panda just on the team, just a panda walking around like a man. I am into that 100%, and I still am.
My favorite line of his is, "Oh, I am man. I am beast. I don't understand man language."
Yeah, that was good. The whole time before that, we hear him talking just fine.
Right?
Yeah, he's like one of the more cool-headed normal characters. All right, so we have Maki, who is a spirit tool user in her combat style because she doesn't have the ability to summon curse energy herself. Toge, who has voice powers but could only speak in what are the rice ball
Sushi ingredients.
I thought it was rice
Ingredients for
balls.
sushi.
Rice ball, but
Rice
a lot
ball.
of the same ingredients. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but basically he can only speak in ingredients. So he says stuff like shrimp, bento
Now,
flakes.
what's interesting is that in combat, he said stop.
He does, and it made
That's the
someone
thing
stop.
is, well, so the only words he can speak are those that are not affected by his power. Every other
Right.
word that he speaks is affected by his power.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And then,
Tuna.
of course, Panda, the panda. They walk up. What's great is like Maki comes up and is like, "Hey guys, why are you looking so sad?" And Panda's like, "Their friend just died."
Yeah.
Why didn't
I
you
love
tell
his
me? I look
armband, by the way.
terrible. You do look terrible right now. And they
I
come
love
up.
his armband. I love Panda.
It's the only piece of clothing he needs.
They come up and they're like, "Hey guys, there's a tournament arc coming. Would you like to help train
Right?
with us for the tournament arc?" And I'm sitting there like, "Go on, a tournament arc in the next episode. I am ready for that." And it doesn't happen in this half of the season. And I was like, "You can't say tournament arc and not have a tournament arc." All right, now. Then we go over to we're inside Sukuna's domain, and Yuji is in there, and Yuji keeps trying to attack him, middling success, but not really getting anywhere. And Sukuna's like, "I'll make you a deal. I will grow your heart back and bring you back to life. You give me 1 minute of control for free whenever I want, when I say a certain word." He's like, "No, that's crazy." He's like, "I promise I won't kill anyone. I promise I won't hurt anyone." He's like, "Well, I can't believe you." He's like, "No, you don't understand. We're literally forming a magic contract. If you break your end of the bargain, you suffer. If I break my end of the bargain, I suffer. It has to happen this way. But also, you can't. I'm not. Part of the deal is you can't remember that we make this deal." And Yuji's like, "Nope, I won't do it." He's like, "Okay, tell you what. How about I fight you for it, and if I win, you take the deal, and if you win, I'll just heal you for free." He's like, "Okay, I take it." Head gone.
Yeah. In other words, you never really had anything to bargain with you.
Right.
I do love that there's this corner that is overly obsessed with the idea of taking Yuji apart because
Yeah.
he's got the fingers in him.
Yep.
But Yuji revives in the morgue, and Gojo's
And
like,
she's disappointed.
yeah, she's a little bummed. He's a little freaked out to be naked on a table. And Gojo doesn't tell anyone. They keep it a secret. So that way the people who tried to have him killed won't know it. He's like, "We're going to keep you being alive a secret until the tournament arc." It's technically a school festival with another school, but guys, it's a tournament arc. You can smell it a mile away.
They all fight each other. It's a tournament.
Hold on, there's a tournament arc going?
What a surprise.
Jason, this is going to blow your mind. I'll bet you there will be a few flashbacks.
As long as they're not in the middle of a fight.
Oh,
we already get those.
Yeah.
It's coming. I'm so excited. All right. So they're training. Most of the students are over there training on the track field. Their training is spinning Nobara around and throwing her because she's a range fighter. So they're like, "We want you to be able to land on your feet if you get thrown." So Panda just picks her up and spins her and throws her like a.
I love that we get introduced to her we only see the top half of her like coming through the screen, and we're like, "What is she doing?" And then it zooms out and it's Panda spinning her.
In the training, Megami, he tries to devise a type of tool that he can use, but also still have his hands free for his summoning of the Shikigami. And that's basically like every time we see him, they're back on the track field spinning Nobara around again. He does have a scene where he goes to that mother and takes her the name tag from the dead son, kind of to honor Yuji. And he's clearly affected by
scene.
Yuji's death. But Yuji, meanwhile, is taken by Gojo for personal training down into a basement where he's like, "Here's what you're going to do. You're going to watch all the movies."
And Troy's
Every
like,
movie.
"Go on."
Yeah.
Now, that's true. I am also a little torn on it. Like, guys, when I watch shonen, one of the reasons I watch it is like, please motivate me to exercise. And this anime is like, why not just sit there and watch movies more? And I'm like, you're right. You're right.
What you need is someone to unexpectedly punch you while you're watching movies.
That's true.
That will make you a better fighter.
So that what they're actually training him to do is to control his emotion, which is where your energy comes from. And so the movies will make his emotions fluctuate, and he has to channel it into one of the cursed bear stuffed
Action
doll
figures.
corpses, or it'll punch him if he fluctuates the energy, if it's too much or too low, to teach him just to control his output. And the only movie I recognized was Lord of the Rings in this whole.
I love that it was literally Lord of the Rings. It was Sam and
I can carry you, Mr. Frodo. But none of the other movies I recognize. Oh, there is a great scene we have to discuss. So Gojo explains cursed energy and cursed techniques. Energy is basically ki from Dragon Ball Z, and then cursed techniques are like basically Kamehameha. So ki blast, Kamehameha, not exactly the same thing. One's a technique, one is just pure energy. He's like, oh, cool. So I can do a technique. He's like, no, you have to be born with it. He's like, oh. And Yuji is he does this cartoony white turn into like a white piece of paper and like flutter down to the ground. But he's also speaking like, I wanted to do a Rasengan or a Dodon Ray or Kamehameha or Bankai, and then Spirit Gun from Yu Yu Hakusho. Again, they love shonen.
On the ground.
I went back and rewatched it and made sure, like, I know that anime, I know that anime, I know that anime. So yeah, he's. It's crazy that this shonen character watches shonen anime.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, what they're going to teach him to do is, hey, we just need you to put energy in your fist. You already are a great martial artist. As long as you have curse energy when you're hitting people, that will be effective, just as good as having a technique. How much you want to bet this guy gets a technique later?
I think he even says that at some point he'll be able to get Sukuna's techniques.
Ah, there you go. That's how you do it. Shonen. You don't get any techniques. He's gonna get techniques in a couple seasons, isn't he? Oh yeah, definitely for sure. You guys know Deku now has more than one technique. He has more than one power.
What?
Yeah, apparently remember how we theorized that the powers from other users come with? Yeah, they do.
Oh my.
Oh, okay, good. So now he's not just super power or super strong. He's got other things.
I gotta check it out then.
Traded that.
I didn't have those. Anyways, wrong anime.
Yep. All right. Yeah, so he watches movies. And then Gojo has to go see the principal, and he's taking on a car ride. And then halfway there, he's like, stop the car. And he gets out, and he has...
and he's like, you're going to hit me when I try and leave, aren't you?
This is a test. You're going to hit me. I'm not going to hit you, dude.
Who do you think I am?
But basically, yeah, out on this mountain, on this lone highway, the volcano head, his name is Goju, the volcano head guy attacks. He was like, oh, I want to do it. I want to be the guy who does it. And he attacks him. And he keeps blasting him, and eventually gets like this punch in the back, and then Goju's fine. Goju's like, yeah, you haven't hit me yet. He's like, no, I hit you. I felt it. He's like, no. You touched the infinity between us. Which, based on how molecules work and how electrons repel each other, and there's technically some truth in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we find out Goju's power is infinity. He basically can't be touched and can hit you as much as he wants. It's insane.
He also mentions, hey, this curse I'm fighting is sentient. Like, it's talking to me.
Yeah,
it's
and
intelligent.
Also, another special grade. Like, you guys this is getting annoying how many of you there are. Like, why are there so many special grades showing up all of a sudden? And he offers a demonstration. He's like, here, hold up your hand and see, we're not touching each other, but you can feel it. And then he grabs the guy's hand and just beats him senseless.
Yeah.
They fly out to like the middle of this lake, and he's like, hold on, I'll be right back. And he disappears, and he comes back with Yuji. And he's like, Yuji, I want you to explain domain expansion. So you're going to watch our fight. And then he taunts Goju. He's like, oh, he's all weak. And Goju's like, oh, yeah, domain expansion. And so, again, creates his own little world, 100% hit. If you were playing the game Jason's playing.
Exile or XCOM.
XCOM.
Yeah, if you're playing XCOM, you would definitely hit inside a domain expansion.
Yeah, the only way.
But 100%. Then Goju does his own domain expansion, which overwrites this domain expansion. And it's basically you stare into the infinite void and see everything and hear everything and feel everything. And so it paralyzes you forever.
Yeah, you're dead.
Well, no, technically not, because he rips this guy's head off and then tries to interview it and get some answers. And then
and like stomps on it while he's interviewing it.
Yeah. And then the forest curse comes and saves him. And then
I love his power, by the way, because both Yuji and Goju are like, oh, the pretty flower.
So the head gets away, and Goju's a little upset about that, but it's fine. And then we come back to I forget his name. There's the guy, the sorcerer, who's not really a good guy, and he's helping the curses. So we see him like go to his apartment, and in the apartment is a tropical island, and
doorway to like another place,
and all the villains are there.
Yeah.
And they play
the water one is relaxing in the water.
They play soccer with the one guy's head.
Yep.
But also in there is a character who's about to be the main villain for the next arc. His name is Mahito, and he's covered in stitches, and he is a shapeshifter, and his ability to shapeshift anything with a soul. So what did you guys think of this villain, Mahito?
I really liked the representation, because they had Gojo, which was the mountain curse. Then you had forest curse guy, and this Stitch guy, he's like the humanity curse. And apparently he was one of the newer ones because he didn't quite understand domain expansion yet, and he was really like childlike. I liked him as a villain, like very manipulative, not just with bodies, but also with emotions and mind, like being able to manipulate the people around him. And he was, as far as a villain in this story, was genuinely scary in comparison to the other ones. Again, I didn't find him horror level, but I definitely liked his ability. And Jeremy, you made some really good points about what a true shapeshifter would be like.
Yeah. Well, first off, Gojo, the volcano head, and Goju, the infinity guy, like that's really rough.
Gojo and Jogu. Yeah.
Oh, Jogu.
Okay. Jogu. Okay, that's a little better.
But it is very
yeah. But as far as Mahito goes, yeah, I really like this character, especially like you were saying, Jason, just the way that they portrayed shapeshifting, I have not seen done this well. And I'm sure that, Parasite did a really good job. I've seen snippets here and there of it, but I haven't actually seen the entire thing. So I don't know if it did much better. But I always remembered in X-Men, right, where you had like Morph the shapeshifter, and you get like 1 or 2 episodes where he actually shows off his shapeshifting ability. And even he didn't do anything like what Mahito did. I mean, Mahito treats his body like it's just clay, and he forms it into whatever he needs in the moment, and it's so effective and so gross. It's really nasty. But I also really like the character's personality because, being the curse of humanity, you could go anywhere with that if you're designing a character as a villain for this, right? He could be the most vicious serial killer, or he could be somebody who's just outright obviously a villain. But you were right, Jason, he's manipulative, he's cunning, because really honestly that's the more frightening thing, is the friend that you don't realize isn't really a friend and is going to stab you in the back, which we actually see happen, and so I thought they did a really good job picking the character that way. But they also showcased how young he was, like his behavior and the things that he's absorbing. Even his philosophical arguments they're just complex enough to call philosophy, but at the same time, they're very pessimistic and cynical and juvenile for that very reason. Like it's an undeveloped idea that hasn't been explored fully. He's just kind of settled on the things that suit him, the argument that, goes the direction he wants it to go. Right. It's really interesting.
Yeah, the logical leaps and the premises that he puts out are very childlike, and that's how he can kind of get to his end goal. But he doesn't do it because he believes it. He does it to manipulate who he's talking to, because he just wants to do what he wants to do.
Well, but I do think that he argues for his worldview too, though, because he's like, you can kill anyone at any time. I sanction you. Well, it's because he thinks that he can do that. But I also love how excited he gets at every new experience, which is also another showcase of him being so young. Very interesting.
I also like the villain. He's good. All right.
We use up all the time.
The next episode has a scene where basically we get to meet the characters who are going to show up in the tournament arc. There's Aoi, who's I love his scene. He comes in, he fights Megami because he asks Megami, what type of woman do you like? And Megami's like, well, just, someone with like a good personality. He's like, oh, I knew you were boring and I can't stand boring, so I have to kill you.
Yes.
I
love how he's
like boring.
He's weeping the whole time. He's like got tears just streaming down his face as he's charging.
of
You're
this anime.
boring.
God, I can't stand it when characters do this. Oh, I'm a third year, so I'm gonna beat you up to see if you're good.
His real reason is he wants the third year from their school to show up, and we've only heard about in name. I have the name somewhere, but I'm not gonna find it. He really wants that person to show up, and they're not going to. That's why the first years are being brought in as substitutes, and he's upset that in his final tournament he doesn't get to have the competition he wants. He's like, well, let me see if you are interesting, and his method is, what do you think about women? And he's like, I want a thick woman with a juicy. Yeah. Also, at the end of this, he stops the fight because he has to go shake an idol's hand. He has tickets to go shake an idol's hand. So great character. And then there's also Mai, who's Maki's twin sister, but mean, and has a gun that she uses.
Like when she pulled out the gun, I was like, "Whoa, anime! Hello!"
Really far. Actually, we'll talk about it in a second. This anime actually does go into a really dark territory, but we'll get there in a second. And then basically Panda shows up with the others, and they put a stop to all this. But it's really just an introduction of here's what's coming in the tournament. Here's the future opponents / friends. These are definitely going to be allies in the future.
Oh yeah.
But then we get a scene of Goju conversing with the head of all Jujutsu sorcerers, and basically calling him out as like, I know you were involved with getting that kid killed. You're not going to stop me from doing what I want. There's problems coming on your doorstep, and you're a rotten piece of scum. He was like really laying it out on the table. And the best part is the assistant girl, whose name is Miwa, is sitting there like, oh, you can't talk to him that way. But really, she loves Goju. She's like, he's the coolest guy.
Total fangirl.
And there's that end credit scene where she's told to go get tea, and instead she goes and gets a picture with him and comes back, and the old man's like, the tea? And she's like, oh no. It's really funny. Yeah. And then we go back to one of those investigative reports where we find out about 3 dead high schoolers in a movie theater with deformed heads, and I mean deformed heads. And then we see a young man chasing after Mahito and asking him if he did it. And then we see Yuji and a blonde man investigating the theater, which is all just setting up for the next arc, which starts here. And we meet a young man named Junpei. Now, Junpei will not be a main character for very long, so there's not much to talk about him. What I really wanted to mention was I did not see the anime going into, in its own way, like school shooter discussions. That was because it and really bullying. It's more bullying, but also bullying to the point where someone becomes, is driven beyond their normal humanity, right? And that's what Junpei's arc is. I did not see that coming. And even at the end, there's like this whole thing about like bullying and not saying something, and I was like, dang, that is intense for a shonen anime. I never saw that in Naruto.
Yeah.
Or Boruto.
Give it 100 episodes. It'll get there.
Yeah.
God
it's got to be at 100 by now, right? All right. Anyway, so yeah, we see this character Junpei getting bullied, and him going to. He's actually at that theater, and there's bullies that are there, and they're talking during the movie. And it's not a good movie, but it's still disrespectful to talk in a theater. You should definitely be afraid if you talk in a theater. And then we see
Just saying.
Mahito. Mahito kills these people who deserve it. No, Mahito kills.
Is
deforms their
Mahito
head.
born here, or was he in previous scenes?
No, he was on the beach, so he's already been he's
Okay.
been around for a
But
while.
he did like explode out of nowhere into the theater, and that was weird.
Huh?
But I do agree that he couldn't have been born here because we didn't like go back in time.
And was he at the cafe? Was he one of the ones at the
I didn't
cafe?
see him at the cafe.
He was not at the cafe.
No, you're right. But he was on the beach. All right. Junpei chases after him and is basically like, "Did you do that?" But also then we see him ask, "Can I do that?"
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Yuji investigating with a man named Kento Nanami. And then we're
businessman ever.
he is a former sorcerer / former businessman and back to sorcery, who Goju is very fond of, but he's not nearly as powerful as Goju. He doesn't even really consider himself a sorcerer, but he is kind of doing the work again. He seems like I'm not official or anything like that, and I shouldn't be here. But he is very businesslike. Actually, his English dub almost sounded like Google talking to you or Alexa whenever he would give responses.
Interesting.
So what did you guys think of his character?
I absolutely loved this guy. I thought he was the funniest character just because you see Yuji try to kind of have a bit of camaraderie and do the standard shonen, let's give it our all. We're going to do this. We're going to get it all done. Because in the previous scene, Nanami is kind of pushing him towards doing a better job, essentially living up to whatever it is the standard that needs to be. So Yuji thinks he's got him here, and instead he says, no, when a moderate level of effort will suffice, that's exactly what we'll use as a moderate level. And it's so confusing to Yuji, and I absolutely love that. But the entire concept behind this guy in this environment where everybody is, imbued with these really, really powerful abilities, and he's just essentially a dropout that's come back to kind of pick up where he left off and continue on. We do find out later that he can't even make his own domain, which is one of the reasons why he does not think of himself as a full-fledged jujutsu sorcerer. But I find his straightforwardness and sort of constantly analytical approach to everything really interesting. Even in the middle of a fight, he will be evaluating and figuring out what's going on with the enemy characters super, super clearly. And it makes sense too, because he's got the ability, he gets called like 7-3 sorcerer, because his ability that he has is that he can pick any 2 points on the body, and the line between those 2 points, if he cuts it at the 7-3 marker, and it could be in either direction, 7-3, then he's able to always hit, or maybe not always hit, but basically
deliver a
cut right
critical
through
hit.
you. Critical hit, yeah. And if you just imagine, right, like combat's hard enough, right? Just hitting the enemy is hard enough, but to actually be able to analyze him, pick points, and then make sure you hit at just the right spot on those points, just the amount of his perception stat must be really high.
This I think I like this character's backstory better than I like him as a character, but I do love this character. It's interesting because he basically is at the point of I might commit suicide someday. I need to do something different with my life. Oh, I actually kind of like helping people. But also like the just intolerance of overtime for this character, like working past
Oh my god,
5
yes.
o'clock is
I love
amazing.
that.
I love it so much. Like he gets a power up because it's after 5. But underneath his all business all the time, you know, the mask that he wears, he's definitely cares about the people around him. And because he always does the excuse of I'm the adult, so I'm responsible, but it's more than that. And you can tell from the way the character responds.
I also like this character. No, for all the reasons you guys said, the power boost for I hit overtime, and that goes into the same contract rule that we already have seen with Sukuna and Yuji. That it's the same contract, except for he seems to make a contract with himself that stores his cursed energy for when he hits a end time and is still working. He gets a boost, and that's so funny. And yeah, and just how different he is from everybody else. We've seen him in the OP this whole time, and I kept wondering, like, what's this guy gonna be? And he ended up being a really great character. He was very fun.
He also introduced another mechanic in this game, not game, in this world that I thought was really interesting, and it gives an out for all of the times that characters explain how their abilities work, because he quite clearly says, yeah, you actually get a bonus when you use that ability if you explain how it works first. And he then proceeds to do this in the later fight just so that he gets that bonus compounded with his overtime.
That's right. That's why he explains to Yuji. Yuji's like, I'm trying to fight. He's like, are you listening to me? I'm explaining how my technique works.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you revealing that?
Because I get a bonus to my power attack next
time. These guys, whoever made this definitely loves shonen anime. Like, I'm going to build in attack explanations into my lore.
Yes, exactly.
That's so good.
Plus 1d to hit.
So they're investigating. Yuji learns to be able to see like residual cursed energy, so like the footprints of the villain, and they track him down. They get attacked by what they think are 2 curses, and then we get that scene of him explaining his power. And we also get an explanation of Yuji's attack. It's called Divergent Fist. Mm-hmm. Basically, he's so slow at putting cursed energy into places. His cursed energy doesn't go when he hits something. That the cursed energy comes in a second hit. So he hits not only with a little bit of energy and his super strength, but then there's like a shotgun blast afterwards.
I love this power.
The stored up cursed energy. So he gets this cool bam, boom effect.
Uh-huh. Do you think it has anything to do with the cursed energy being not his but Sukuna's, and so Sukuna doesn't want to let him have it, so he's basically stealing it so it's slow?
I don't think we've touched his energy yet, but I think
I don't know.
Huh.
But maybe.
That's how I visualized it.
When they win the fight, Nanami realizes one of these guys is wearing a watch. Curses don't wear a watch. These are humans. And they send it to the mortician lady, and she's like, yeah, they were humans. Also, you weren't the ones that killed them. It was literally the curse that turned them into these forms that killed them. So Yuji, you didn't kill anybody. And he's like, thank you, but that still feels terrible that we did this to humans. And so this was Mihito's plan. There was a trap laid by Mihito, and he's been talking with Junpei and filling his head with stuff, educating him into this whole world of jujutsu, and then
give him his own Shishigami, right?
Yeah, but we don't find that out till later.
It was his, if I understand correctly. He just like unlocked the power.
Right. He basically gave him like a speed course in hey, this was your thing. You would have been able to do this on your own, but I pumped you up to like a first year already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we don't know that's happened yet. I don't know exactly when it happens. Anyway, so Yuji is sent to go talk to Junpei because everyone knows he's the witness of the crime scene, right? So like, we want you to go talk with this guy, make sure he wasn't involved. But really, what Nanami wants to do is go face Mihito alone. And so these 2 stories play out. So for Junpei's, they're trying to trick him and to see if he has powers, but he definitely can see the curse. But they mess it up, and Yuji just does nice guy. And also, there's a great scene. So Junpei is coming home and his teacher's there, and like you're skipping school, and you didn't even show up to the funeral of those of your friends that were murdered in the high school, and his old bullies. And he's like, my friends, and we'd already seen a scene of the teacher seeing them beating him and burning him and just walking by. And Junpei's getting ready to kill him, and Yuji shows up with the oops, I messed up the curse trap, and the teacher's like, what are you doing here? He's like, well, I need to talk to him. He's like, well, you can't. I'm a teacher. And he's like, okay. Pulls the teacher's pants down and just bolts down the street.
With the pants.
With the pants. Teacher chases after him. And then Yuji comes back around the corner. He's like, okay, now we can go and have a talk. And is trying to be like, I don't know how much I'm allowed to tell you, but tells him everything. He's like, hey, he's like, do you know anything about those deaths? No? Okay, well, that's all I had.
Hey, can we be friends?
Yeah. And then Junpei's mom shows up and she invites him to dinner. And so they go to dinner at Junpei's house and he has dinner with their mom. And then Junpei asks him if he's ever killed anyone. And I absolutely love Yuji's answer, which is no. And it's not because of the people I'm worried about killing someone who doesn't deserve it. I'm worried about what it'll do to me and what my value of human life will change if I start killing people. Absolutely love that answer. Yeah. Not something you see a lot of. No one ever talks about the cost to yourself for doing violent action. It's something I think about a lot. So I like that this anime touched it.
How many people do you beat up a day?
Me? just myself.
Man, that violent action cost me.
Yes, and then we'll back over to the other story. So Mahito and Nanami have a really cool fight where they basically kind of test each other out. Mahito basically winning until Nanami says this fight's over by 6 p.m. no matter what. And then at 6 p.m. hits, he's like, oh, now I'm on overtime. And that's when he gets his big power boost. And he starts explaining his attack. And he does this attack where he puts basically cursed energy into a wall, slices it apart, and then drops it on Mahito and crushes him. But Mahito is able to survive because he's able to shapeshift into like a puddle that gets away. But he even says, like, next time we do. And should also be pointing out that Mahito has been changing humans and they don't usually last very long in their whatever forms he puts them in. But he's like, what about a Jujutsu sorcerer? That'd be different. And he does touch him, but he can Nanami is able to protect his soul instinctively. But he's like, yeah, a few more touches and you're gonna belong to me. So there is something really scary about a guy who's like, if I touch you, you lose. And also I can stretch and touching things is super easy.
Yep.
Then that night, Junpei's mom wakes up from drinking on the kitchen table, and there's a finger in front of her. It's one of Sukuna's fingers, and then we see a curse sneaking up behind her, and then we kind of cut forward to. And this was all set up by Mahito and the other bad guys. She was cut in half with ice packs, then put against her lower half, or where she was dismembered and put back in her bed. But yeah, grisly murdered. And Mahito tells Junpei like, "Oh, someone put that finger there to get you. Who doesn't like you? It must have been them. Someone wants to go after you." And then they put a veil. I skipped over veil. Veil is basically, hey, we can have super battles and the human world won't see.
Yeah.
And apparently the bad guys can do it too. They put it over this high school, and Junpei goes in and very much school shooter vibes, except for he's using magic, and he goes and attacks his bully and starts poisoning him, is what I believe is happening. And Yuji burst in. He's like, "What are you doing?" And they start fighting. And then we get a little bit of flashback of how this all set up and how Yuji wasn't supposed to go. And he's like, "Screw it! I'm going to help this guy. I'm going to stop him." And they're fighting. The poison doesn't work on Yuji. I don't know if we get explained why, but it's not effective on him. And basically Yuji's like, all this logic about why you have to kill people, why lives don't matter. That's just you trying to convince yourself. It's all BS. But then finds out his mom was murdered, and it's like, I'm sorry, things I said. Can you talk to me? I'll listen and I'll be there to help you. Come join the school. Come be a Jujutsu sorcerer and we'll work at getting whoever got your mom together. We'll do this together. And then Mahito shows up and he's like, oh, that was fun. This was good times. And Junpei realizes he says the words, he's not a bad person. And he remembers, oh yeah, he's been literally murdering humans.
Yeah.
And Mahito touches Junpei and transforms him. And this has all been a trap for Yuji. And Yuji falls right for it. He's like, hey, Sukuna, I'll give you whatever you want. Full control, anything you want. Save him, put him back. And Sukuna's mouth appears and goes, no. And then Mahito starts laughing. And they're just these two bad guys mocking him as his friend is like begging him. He starts attacking him, but then he's begging him, like, kill me. And then he just falls over and dies.
Yeah.
Yuji gets mad and he hits Mahito and actually does real damage to him. So you can damage his body all you want, it doesn't matter, but he's actually real damage. And he realizes, oh, because he's two souls sharing a body, he knows what his soul is. He has control over his soul. And when he hits me, he's damaging my soul, which is the only way to hurt me. And they have this really cool epic fight. Yuji does get stabbed through the chest, but it is later you see it's like the shoulder and the gut, not like vital organs, which made it a little better. But yeah, he's heavily wounded, beating on each other.
He does like this move where he like makes a drill and like shoots it at him, and like he ends up grabbing the cord of his arm, but then like spikes come out of it. Like that's so cool as far as like a shapeshifter. So now he's just got multiple holes all over his body.
What also cool is he like they said, their first reaction should be to let go, but instead he just he grabs harder and pulls. Like, I've already got the holes in me, might as well go for it.
Yeah.
But Mahito touches Yuji and touches his soul, which means he touches Sukuna's soul, and Sukuna goes, no. Look, we had a good laugh at the kid's expense, so I'm giving you a warning. You touch my soul again, you're done. And it just backs out. Meanwhile, Nanami shows up and they start doing a two-person puzzle, and they figured out like he needs time to transform, so he pulls out some humans out of his mouth and sends them at Yuji. He's like, he won't kill humans. Yuji does have to kill these humans who are literally begging for death. And I skipped over the scene where he does an attack and there's like a face in it, and Nanami wipes the tear off of it. Such a good scene. Holy crap. I know I've been rushing, but I had to touch on that. That was so good. And he's saying like, I have no personal feelings towards this. This is just a job, as he's wiping the tear away from the deformed human. Oh man. Anyway, Yuji kills some deformed humans. They start beating on him, and he's like, oh, I'm losing, but I can do domain expansion now. He hadn't been able to do this before, and he does. And he only grabs Nanami, and he's like, and Nanami's like, we see his flashback of being a businessman, and how basically a life obsessed with money, not even for himself, just as a stockbroker, was killing him, and how he came back to this. And he's like, I'm going to die with no regrets. Yuji's trying to break in, and Yuji does break in because domains are made to never be broken out of. They're actually not too hard to break into because no one would ever do that. That'd be insane. So Yuji jumps in, but since domains have a 100% hit rate, and his hit is literally touching your soul, he automatically touches Sukuna's soul, and Sukuna is offended. I warned you.
Totally not his fault, by the way.
Right. Nothing he can do against what Sukuna warned him. And so it's suddenly just a geyser of blood. He literally rips this guy's soul. And then Yuji goes to hit him, and he goes into this big fat form. And Yuji's like, well, I can't miss. And he hits him, but it was a feint. And he actually had made a tiny form to jump down into the drain. And he actually escapes. And so then, but Yuji, due to blood loss, collapses and tries to wants to keep fighting, but they can't. So then we jump to the ending, which is where he finds out Junpei's dead, and he's in the morgue, and he's like, "All this was for nothing. We didn't stop him. I didn't save anybody." We see the school literally trying to like do education on bullies, and the teacher, who had been terrible, telling the main bully, like, "I'm making sure you pay for everything you put that kid through." He's like, "What about you? You never did anything." He's like, "Oh, I'll be paying too, but first I'm making sure you pay." In this nice little moment of like, we failed this kid, and everyone thinks he moved away, but yeah, clearly he's gone. Which again brings us back to the OP, where he's been in the opening shot with the class the whole time, and you realize he's not really there. It's more like his spirit is haunting Yuji.
Yep.
That's harsh. Because I thought for sure like we were gonna get like a Sasuke character out of this. Like, he's good, but he's also half bad, and Yuji's constantly trying to bring him back to the good side, and that is not where they went, and I was caught off guard. So bravo to them for killing off what they introduced as a major character.
I hope they keep him dead. I have a really sneaking suspicion that they might bring him back somehow, but I hope they don't.
All right, and so that brings us to any thoughts on the ending? Beautiful fight, gorgeous animation.
Looking forward to the next arc, which I assume is going to be tournament
arc.
If they completely drop it, I'm going to laugh so hard at Troy's expense.
The episode title is like it literally says it's not tournament arc, but whatever the competition is called is the name of the episode. So either it's a huge red herring, or we're finally getting the tournament arc.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Nothing from me.
All right, final reviews then. Jason, what do you got for us?
Beautiful animation. OP and ED are fairly addicting, especially the ED. It's so weird. I don't like EDs. Anyways, the characters really carry the story for this, and even though it's got just this outline of this, like, it's cookie cutter. This is shonen, but we arranged it and made it in a really interesting and compelling way. And again, the characters just kind of carry this. So far, I'm going to give this a 4. It's not perfect, and it's not the horror that I was hoping for, but it's definitely. I'm glad we're watching it, so I'm looking forward to next part.
Jeremy, how about you?
I have a ton of questions, and I mean, I've already voiced them, but I'm really curious as to whether or not these things are loopholes or whether they're just awaiting an explanation. And if they're just awaiting an explanation, that would be really cool. Like, among them are just the idea that if Sukuna is attached to whoever ate the finger, then if another person eats the finger and survives against all odds, would there be 2 Sukunas? And what would they think of each other? Just weird stuff that I could see as potential for even like future seasons. Yeah, I found myself enjoying it. It was definitely a nice change of pace from the other anime that we've been watching recently. And the animation was great. But it's definitely something that once it's finished, unless it does something else to like really wow me, I'm probably going to forget about it. So I've got to give it a 3, a high 3, but still a 3 for me.
All right. For the most part, I've moved on from shonen, but I do like to go back once in a while and just binge a shonen. Like, it's almost like mindless enjoyment. And this is a better than most shonen. I do think they're taking, just like Jason said, they're taking the parts from other shonen. Hey, the bad guys inside the main character, giving them power. Hey, I've seen that before, but you're also doing it in a new and compelling way and making it really good. So no complaints there. I could see myself turning this on while I'm cleaning the house, for further seasons. So 4 for me. Something I'm enjoying, even though shonen, again, is I prefer stuff like Promised Neverland, where I'm going to be thinking more and really analyzing stories and themes. But a good anime fight every couple episodes is not something not entertaining to watch. I messed that up. It doesn't matter.
Well, and also, shonen has a long history of hurting you.
Yes, yeah. Well, I was just thinking now, like, Jeremy's like, I wonder if these questions will be answered, and it'll be like, yeah, in 300 episodes, they'll tell
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
So you'll. That's just that.
Yep.
That's what it is. All right. Let's for our next episode, we will be watching the rest of the episodes of the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen, so 14 through 24, and we'll be discussing them in our next. And then we'll be going on to another anime. So if you have thoughts on Jujutsu Kaisen, feel free to leave them on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or email the animebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast, and it'll get back to us. We always appreciate the feedback and to hear your guys' own opinions. I think that's it. Let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Benito Flakes.
Sayonara.
They're going to wonder, what the hell was that?